Hello and welcome to SciLux, the podcast where we talk about scientific developments and technological changes in Luxembourg. This is the time of the year when I hectically look for Christmas presents, but it's also the time of the year when I catch my usual sinusitis. Please excuse my voice. A big cup of hot water with honey and lemon is waiting for me in case I have to stop. And now on today's subjects: virtual reality tackling deforestation, personalised weed monitoring, and reproducibility of research at LCB. But first, as usual, it's time for the pub quiz. This is the part of the podcast where I present you one pub quiz style question, and the solution to the question is at the very end of the podcast, so listen up. Today's question is: what is Bairstowius amaliae, and who was it named after? I recently started worrying of causing my children's climate anxiety. How would you call it? Anxiety of anxiety or something like that? Well, anyway, you probably noticed that there are quite a lot of children's books that talk about this problem, talk about climate and try to make people more sensitive to the issue. Definitely when I was growing up, that was not the case. The maximum we were doing was sorting trash. Well, maybe also turning off the spare light bulb in the room where we're not there. But that was it. And now it definitely is all around us, and I think that's a good thing. But also remember not to overdo it. I think our children are definitely living in a world where this is sometimes brought to extremes. Anyway, the problem is that we often just don't see the changes. So you wake up in the morning, you look at the usual news sites, and of course, sometimes you also have some videos or some photos to look at. So, well, of course, you check, there is a photo of yet another glacier that is melting or whatever else, but it's just a photo. It's not happening around the corner. We don't see it. And the solution to this problem was found by two scientists at the University of Luxembourg. They have recently participated in a workshop, a virtual reality workshop, where they presented actually an award-winning demo concerning deforestation. So the title of the demo and the poster that came with it was Forest Saver, a virtual reality application to raise awareness of deforestation. And what they were actually showing was that in the context of virtual reality, you could see different stages of deforestation. So you could really imagine how the forest you go to would look like at different stages of felling trees. What was also crucial in this project is that the scientists didn't use the normal lighting, but they actually chose the volumetric lighting. So volumetric lighting is sometimes called also God rays. So this idea of seeing beams of light shining through different environments. So that kind of made the whole experience a little bit more natural, if you want. The people behind this demo and poster are Dr. Jean Botev, the research scientist at the Department of Computer Science, and his third-year student, Adriano Viegas Milani. And they were the ones that got the prize in Trier at the VR workshop. So congratulations to them. And I hope that, as they promised, we will see a computer game developed on the basis of this demonstration. In case you want to see more, you can see their video that they used to present at the workshop. Of course, the workshop was virtual because of the pandemics. They could not meet, but this means that we can actually check it out, exactly what they showed. I will leave the link in the show notes. This was the first photo in my life where I saw two people kneeling at crops, most probably looking at some weeds and actually smiling. Pretty happy. I don't know what the reason for that was. Maybe they just discovered something very special. They figured out how to get rid of certain weeds, or they were just having fun and they loved their work. I don't know. But anyway, the scientists were Sergio Trier and Katrine Scherer and their team at LIST, Luxembourg Institute of Science and Technology. Sergio Trier is the member of the National Sentinel-4 and 5 projects. These are the projects that give a type of warning and advisory platform for main pests and diseases in crops in Luxembourg. And what they did was the research on fighting weeds and suggesting personalized weed chemicals, because what they noticed is that in more than half of the 600 fields they looked at in 2020 in Luxembourg, the herbicides didn't work. And they wanted to understand why. There were 3 reasons. Maybe it was the resistance to the herbicides, maybe there were some environmental conditions, or just practical mistakes. The end goal of this research is to limit the amount of chemicals sprayed. Normally the farmers would just try out new chemicals if the other didn't work, whereas here they wanted just to suggest the chemicals through the research, so avoid this trial periods of different herbicides. Of course, we could argue here, why don't we just go for organic farming? And I recently saw a parliamentary question about it. It seems that in Luxembourg we have only 5% of organic farms, so there is still a lot to do in this field. But I guess rather than complaining and saying, why don't we all turn organic, it's better to try to use less chemicals. That's better for the farmers and definitely better for the consumers. Have you heard about the reproducibility crisis? That's a very important crisis in the research field, because it seems that there are far too many findings, far too many publications that actually turn out to be, could we say fake? Maybe not fake, but very difficult to reproduce, very difficult to prove. So in a way, it is a bit shocking in the beginning when you start reading about it, because you always think, okay, they are articles produced, written, then published in different important or less important, but still scientific journals. They are peer-reviewed. Why do we still end up with different research that actually cannot be proven right? And the answer to this is that, of course, with the situation right now, with the fact that media is looking for very quick answers, the scientists are pushed to publish more, faster, and they sometimes just don't produce research that contains all the necessary correct resources, or maybe just certain bibliography is incorrect, or whatever else. This does happen, and it's a very serious crisis. The answer to this is what the LCSB did, so the Luxembourg Center for Systems Biomedicine. They decided to start this R3 initiative, which is the Responsible and Reproducible Research Initiative. And part of it is actually a cooperation. They decided to choose to use this special tool called SciScore. And this is the automated validation tool that is used for scientific articles. It analyzes different flaws in reference material and unreliable source identification. It looks at the sample size, blinding, randomization, bias, and it will be used pre-publication in order to improve the quality of the research of LCSB, as well as to lead to better publication in the future. The first idea is to just use it on the previous articles and develop certain practices that can be used for future articles and help the other scientists. The leader on this is Dr. Christophe Trefoy. He is the leader of the R3 team, and we hope that this will be just not the only academic institution in Luxembourg, at the university, of course, that will try to tackle the problem of reproducibility. That is actually something that not necessarily laymen know about, because we assume that the findings have been checked and the sample has been big, but that is not always the case. So this is definitely going to lead to better research, but also better information for all of us. And now it's time for the solution to the pub quiz. So if you remember, the question was, what is Bairstowius Amalia and who was it named after? So first of all, you might be wondering, Luxembourg and the strange Latin name, why? So I have to tell you that the paleontologists at the National Museum of Natural History in Luxembourg, led by Robert Weiss, but also PhD thesis author Patricia Rita have recently found this amazing animal called Bairstowius amaliae, and it's a belemnoid, which is an extinct species, very similar to a squid and related to cuttlefish. It had 10 arms of equal length, but it had no tentacles. And they discovered it in the Lusitanian Basin, that's west central Portugal between Porto and Lisbon. And when they discovered it, they decided to name it after the fado queen, Amalia Rodrigues. Unfortunately, because of copyright reasons, I cannot present to you any of the fado that she used to sing, but I promise to have some links in the show notes so you can get into the feeling of this naming. And it's also interesting, I don't know if you had a chance to participate in an exhibition a couple of years ago. This time it was about species named after different rock music. So there is something about music and science, and whenever I hear both connections, the connection between music and science, I'm happy because these are two of my passions. So once again, Bairstowius amaliae was a belemnoid, and it was discovered by scientists from Luxembourg. And this is the end of the podcast. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed the show. I survived without the hot water with lemon and honey, so I'm pretty happy about it, and I can still talk. But of course, now I'm going to take some rest. And when I rest, I remind you to subscribe, to follow us, to comment on whatever you want to comment. Write to me. Please check the Twitter and Facebook accounts and tell others about us. This was Silux, and your host for the show was Hanna Siemaszko.